So, I mean, we were able to at least figure things out to get to a break even point and start to kind of do okay with the PPP. We could survive. But it became frustrating as, this first lockdown, I think, was 85 days. And we had one of, if not the longest, one of the longest in the country. And that's just where the frustrations really seem to start coming in. Like all these other states are allowed to open and exercise what in my mind on some level was a constitutional right. And here we are being told that we still can't, but we're going to put in policy places that actually bolster fast food. And then that was when we had a whole bunch of okay, well, this and like Home Depot could be open, but your garden center couldn't be open. Right. And we weren't allowing like outdoor landscaping to go. And it was just like, they're talking about the science, but then I'm from a scientific mind. That's my whole philosophy is always getting better. So that was where it became really hard to necessarily fully buy into what they were doing. But, we did it. Eventually the extra unemployments came along to take care of our people. And, June 8th rolled around and we were excited to be able to reopen. So, we got back in the mix. Summer went relatively well with us. Luckily we had great weather. So that helped our patio do well. And things were cruising along until, I think it was September or October, kind of the drum beats of the fear narrative or the threat of this was starting to get, pretty rampant again. And, at that point, when I got to November and they announced, it was November 15th that she announced what they dubbed the pause, where we were supposed to just close down for 3 weeks. And at that point, the unemployment benefits were gone. Right. Our staff had just finally sort of recovered from, having had almost a 3-month period where they had extremely limited revenue, if any. And now they were telling us that we're going to close you down again and just trust us. It's going to be 3 weeks. And heading into the holiday season where I've got single moms with kids, I've got breadwinners of families. It's really hard for me to say you're looking out for people if you're going to throw those, especially at this time when the numbers seem to bear out that this mostly targeted a specific set of people, whether the elderly, the obese, or somebody with extreme prior conditions. I'm not saying that's it. There wasn't anything outside of that, but it seemed pretty clear that's what it was. And it seemed like people at this point could be empowered to make decisions that were best for themselves. And, one thing I've ever said is I've never forced anybody to eat my barbecue. And we thought we could operate safely. And when I tried to have conversations, even throughout the summer, I tried to have conversations with the health department because I wanted to make sure I had understandings of, some of what they were asking me to do at the time, enforce mandates on my team. In my understanding, violated the American with Disabilities Act. And I was asking for clarity on this because I'd actually been threatened by an employee's father who had asthma, was wearing a mask as we were trying to enforce, and she passed out. And she said because she was struggling to breathe. And her dad was a lawyer, had lawyer connections, and he's now threatening me and my business for not adhering to the ADA Act. And so it's like, pick your poison. Right. So I go to the head of the health department in Lapeer, and at first I went to the health inspector because I'm like, hey, here's what I'm trying to enforce. But if people come to me and they have this note or they have this thing, I'm required to make a reasonable accommodation. I'm like, if I don't force the mask on these people, I'm like, is this in violation? He's like, no, you're okay. Everything's fine. 2 days later, he comes back and starts threatening my manager because somebody doesn't have a mask on. Just not like everybody, but just like a small amount. So I call him and he's like, well, you're gonna have to talk to somebody else. He passes me on to eventually the directors. I'm talking to the person who's literally the head of the county health department. Right. And I'm having the conversation. I'm like, I just need to understand because what you're seeming to ask me violates federal law, which supersedes everything. And there's nothing in here that says I'm protected from it. So I need something from you in writing saying that you will protect me from lawsuits if they come against me. And the response was, at first, when I talked to her on the phone, it seemed relatively positive. She's like, okay. I'm like, hey, can I just get a summary of this in a letter? Just send it to me signed. That would be fantastic. And she's like, yeah, I can provide that for you. She provided me a copy of the order and then just said, good luck. And so I kind of responded with, Kat, this doesn't really address what we talked about. This doesn't make me have peace of mind that you are ordering me, to my understanding, to violate this federal law, which is going to open me up to tons of liability. And the second somebody files a lawsuit against you as a business, you've already lost.
And you're already from where you're already at.
I had no legal fund. There's no war chest to battle this. And I'm trying to balance and do my best to find what the right thing is here for everybody involved. And when I had the conversation with her again, she's like, well, I just really wish you cared about your people more. That was the response from like the county health director. She's like, those are the ones that you're talking about. They're the same ones we're trying to protect. I'm like, Kath, I'm like, what are we doing here? I'm like, and I even asked her at one point in the conversation, I'm like, this is in like June. So I think we're like 3 months in, a little bit after that. I'm like, Kathy, can you tell me, what is the actual plan? You have to be having conversations with somebody. What is the plan here? Because we're not really getting a whole lot. She's like, well, I think it's to kind of keep people locked down as much as possible and then wait for the vaccine to come save us. And again, this is like 90 days in. I'm like, this is already it. We're praying for the vaccine. And I asked her, I'm like, Kathy, when was the last time we got a real big win with a vaccine? When a vaccine really just took something out? She's like, oh, well, there was smallpox. And I'm like 60 years ago this is our plan A, and there's no plan B.
And that was a 15-year global campaign that was funded by the UN and stuff. Like, if I remember right, there's a whole lot more to that.
So it seemed very disturbing to me that it's like, this is our plan to keep us locked down, literally locked down as much as possible, and then wait for a vaccine to save us.
Here's like, if we were talking about Brooklyn, right, where we have the entire population of the state of South Dakota living in 1 square mile. Okay. We at least have something to talk about in my mind at that point. But to me, I can't believe that the response to this was anything other than population density driven. Like, if you don't live in the city, if you are not in a densely populated area, how dangerous this is for you, it goes down. And I mean, the part that makes maybe I'm completely wrong about this, but the part that has made this so dangerous for so many people is having about half of our citizens in a place where they have borderline third world healthcare for themselves.
Or even no access to healthcare.
Right. Well, I mean,
and even then, when we have access to healthcare, we have to look at what our healthcare system is at this point.
Right.
It's often, sick care, where we don't really cure anything. Even the whole approach with this, once we got the firm data, knowing that, 80% of those admitted to hospitals were very obese, where was any governor or any political leader coming out with a Get Fit America campaign?
We closed gyms instead.
Yeah, we closed gyms. We enacted stuff that supported fast food.
Absolutely.
It's like the answer's here. The answer is our bodies are great, and for the most part can take care of us. Yes, there's a vulnerable population, which definitely should be protected in any way that we can. And I'm happy to do that. But, the fact that it was the policies literally drove more things that put us in worse health, whether we're talking the rates of, drugs and overdosing or mental health, especially with everybody across the board, but especially the youth, as somebody who employs a lot of younger people, seeing what happened there with so many suicide attempts. It was terrifying. The obesity rate skyrocketing, people not going for regular checkups because they're afraid to go,
that was the scariest part. I had a close friend through the concert circuit who has always had health issues, and she wasn't able to go to the doctor for 5 months. And then when she finally did go, she had stage 4 cancer that had just been growing and growing. And so these are the stories that we heard firsthand. And, if you get upset about these policies, you're labeled as one party, which again, I am not.
Right. And that's
at all.
And I'm with you there. I mean, I've been getting killed for being, for letting people know that no, somebody who knows what this is supposed to look like assured me that this is like, they looked at what this virus is made of, and it looks like somebody ordered a pepperoni pizza, removed one slice, and put a slice of Hawaiian in. Like, it's weird. It's it's cleared, like this is not how nature does things.
No.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that and
how
and
quickly
nobody was
everything
having it.
became politicized.
Mhm.
I mean, especially in the Trump era where, everything, the media just took it and ran with it. And the second, he wasn't doing the most extreme measures, how then the division lines were drawn there. And I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Trump hater. I put my investments in ideas, not in people.
Right.
Mhm.
So
it
it was such a difficult place where everybody was assuming these things and thinking like I'm here to kill grandmas. But and you can see my full video either on our Facebook or the Restaurant Revolution is actually our podcast that we do, kind of telling our whole story in detail.
I will go ahead and tag it.
But I did the announcement because we had 3 days to figure it out. And I went to in November for the second lockdown. I went to my leadership, our general manager and the head of our kitchen, and I'm like, guys, here, I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I'm here to tell you what's happening and the 3 options that we have. And then I want you guys to tell me what you think we should do. And that was one, we shut down like last time. We now have over 30 employees. We have to lay off over 20 of them.
Is that you?
That's us.
All
Yep.
right.
We're on all major Restaurant Revolution. Check it out on all major podcasts. You can get the full videos on YouTube. Yeah, we still have new episodes coming out as the story isn't over. So we continue to kind of provide updates with everything with where we're at. But yeah, we laid it out some. It's like lockdown, lay everybody off like last time. Lockdown, try to keep on a couple extra people, maybe a little bit more expanded menu, but for the most part, lay off more than half the staff, or enact as many safety and security measures as we can. Announce what we're doing, full transparency. We're going to go to all leaders that we can talk to, whether it's legal, political, health department, everybody, and just give them a heads up. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And I'm happy to have conversations with anybody about it. And, they were like, wow, you're letting us, they were overwhelmed that I let them have input and actually kind of make this decision. I'm like, well, you guys aren't my pawns. I want to support you guys in the end. My business is here to help people. And if I make money off it, great. But when I laid it out to them, they debated for a while. They kind of asked some questions and they said, let's stay open. Let's take care of our people.
Which I really think goes to show that, there is this hierarchy of employment, right? You've got people all the way at the top, whether it's political, then you go down to your business owners.
Sure.
Then you've got the people, right? Everybody else who is doing all of the work. And that was who made the decision to ultimately basically save the economic lives of their peers, of the people that they work with. So again, this was not Pat's decision. This was humans recognizing that other humans had suffered for 85 days during the first lockdown, and they didn't want to participate in that sort of burden again, because that decision now fell on them.
Right.
So when that responsibility and accountability falls on the everyday person, it's interesting to see what kind of decisions they make. And they made the human decision.
And I owed that decision to them because, I get very emotional talking about it. But when I was at home and I couldn't even come up during the week to try to save my business, these were 2 of the 8 people that kept it going, that kept the wheels on the bus, kept it from completely falling off. So, without them, there'd be nothing. So who am I at that point to come and dictate any terms to them without giving them a voice? So that's what happened. They agreed to do that. I said, okay, I got to get on the phone. I called the chief of police. I called the county sheriff, talked with, I think, as many city commissioners as I could find, tried to reach out to the city manager, health department, anybody who had any sort of authority. I wanted to make sure I was doing full transparency, and I let them know what we're doing. We're not trying to run a speakeasy. We're not here to shake our fist at the government. We're here to take care of our people. And we told them, here's all the safety measures we're doing, went above and beyond any of the previous recommendations, down to like 1/3 capacity, masks everywhere, dividers, temp checks of my people, temp checks of my guests, like over the top stuff to make sure that we had as safe of a business as possible.